Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be looking at something that's become super important for businesses of all sizes, but especially small businesses. Cybersecurity awareness. We all know the internet is kind of a wild west out there, and small businesses are often seen as like those easy targets, which makes having a strong defense even more important. So how do we actually build that culture of cybersecurity among employees? That's what we're here to figure out today.
Yeah, it's really interesting how cybersecurity has kind of shifted. It's not just an IT problem anymore. It's something everyone in a company really needs to be involved in. I mean, think about it. Even a small mistake by just one employee, can have huge consequences.
So we can't just leave it to the IT department, just cross our fingers and hope for the best.
Hmm.
We need everyone on board.
Exactly. Your employees are really your first line of defense. If they know what to look out for, how to handle things securely, you're way less likely to become a victim. It's all about building that security conscious mindset throughout the company.
Okay, so what's in it for me, as a small business owner? What are the actual benefits of getting everyone on the same page with cybersecurity? Besides not getting hacked, obviously.
Well, for one thing, a security conscious workplace, it really reduces the risk of human error. I mean, think about all those data breaches you hear about. So many of them stem from just simple mistakes. Plus, a lot of industries now have regulations that require businesses to have specific security measures in place. So if your employees are trained, you're much more likely to meet those requirements and avoid those hefty fines.
Yeah, compliance, that's a big one. But it's not just about avoiding penalties, is it? There's a bigger picture here,
You
right?
got it. It also comes down to trust. In today's world, customers and partners really want to know that you're taking their data seriously. Demonstrating a strong cybersecurity culture, well, that can give you a real advantage over your competitors. It just tells people you're proactive about protecting their information.
That makes sense. So it's not just about the tech, it's about your company's reputation too.
Yeah.
And I guess it also makes your employees feel more confident and empowered when they're using digital tools, right?
Precisely. When employees know how to handle things securely, they can focus on their work without worrying about making a mistake that could put the company at risk. It creates a much more positive and productive environment for everyone.
Right, so we've established why cybersecurity awareness is so important, but how do we actually make it happen? How do we create this culture of security?
Well, the foundation of any good program is comprehensive training. And I don't mean just a boring annual presentation. You need ongoing training, something that keeps employees updated on evolving threats and best practices.
So it's more than just checking a box. How do we make this training engaging, something that employees actually remember?
Make it relatable. Use real-world examples and interactive modules. For instance, you could show them how to spot a phishing email, something almost everyone has encountered at some point. And when it comes to passwords, ditch that whole password 123 mentality. Teach them to use passphrases, strings of unrelated words for maximum security.
So practical tips they could use every day. I like it. What other areas should this training cover?
Data handling is crucial. With so much information stored digitally, employees need to understand how to classify and store data properly, based on its sensitivity. And clear incident reporting procedures, those are also vital. Everyone needs to know what to do if they suspect something fishy's going on.
So it's not just about preventing problems, it's about knowing what to do if something does happen.
You got it. And don't forget about mobile device security. So many employees use smartphones and tablets for work these days, so make sure those devices are protected too. Think of security as a holistic approach. You got to cover all your bases.
All of this sounds great, but how do we know the training is actually sticking? People forget things, and bad habits, well, they can creep back in.
You're absolutely right. And that's why cybersecurity drills and simulations are so valuable. They allow employees to apply their knowledge in a safe environment and really test their responses in real time.
So what do these drills look like? Are we talking about hacking simulations?
Well, it can involve those, but even something as simple as a phishing email test can be really insightful. You send out these simulated phishing emails and just see if employees can spot those red flags and report them correctly. It's just a safe way to learn and improve.
That makes a lot of sense. What other kinds of simulations are there? I imagine social engineering tactics could be pretty hard to spot.
You're telling me. You can have ethical hackers try to manipulate employees into revealing information or granting access. It helps them understand the tactics that are being used and how to avoid falling for them. And then incident response drills are good too. Simulate a cyber incident, have employees work through the steps of containing it and then recovering from it. It helps them think on their feet, understand the protocols that are in place.
Thinking about all these threats and simulations is kind of overwhelming.
Yeah.
Makes you realize how vulnerable businesses can be.
You're not wrong. But the good news is that there are companies like Stonefly that specialize in helping businesses navigate this whole complex landscape.
Stonefly, I've heard of them. What exactly do they do?
Stonefly offers this comprehensive suite of cybersecurity solutions. Things like data backup and disaster recovery, advanced threat protection, even the security awareness training we've been discussing.
So they can actually help businesses implement all these strategies we've been talking about.
Exactly. They can assess your specific needs, recommend the right tools and solutions, and even provide ongoing support. Think of them as your trusted partner in cybersecurity.
That's reassuring, especially for small business owners who might be feeling, I don't know, a little lost in all of this.
Absolutely. Stonefly, they understand the unique challenges that small businesses face, and they tailor their solutions accordingly. Their website, www.stonefly.com, is a great resource to learn more about their offerings. And their sales team at sales@stonefly.com is always available to answer any questions.
Okay, so we've got training, we've got drills, but how do we go beyond just knowledge? How do we actually instill that security-first mindset in everyone?
It's all about weaving cybersecurity into the very fabric of your company culture. Make it just a natural part of how everyone does their work.
But that's easier said than done, right? How do we actually make that happen?
It starts with leadership. When employees see that security is a top priority for those at the very top, they'll take it more seriously. Communicate consistently about cybersecurity using different channels. Just keep it top of mind.
What about incentives? Do those work?
Absolutely. Reward employees who demonstrate strong security practices. A simple shout out, maybe a small gift card, that can go a long way. And then there's gamification. Introducing those fun competitions or challenges related to cybersecurity, it keeps everyone engaged and motivated.
I like that. Make it
Oh.
fun and engaging. But sometimes, even with the best intentions, things can still slip through the cracks.
That's where clear security policies and procedures come in. These guidelines, they outline what's acceptable and what's not when it comes to using company devices, networks. They define how sensitive information should be handled, what to do if there's a suspected security incident.
So it's about having that roadmap for everyone to follow. What are some key areas these policies should cover?
Well, first, define acceptable use of company devices and networks. What websites can they visit? Can they access personal email accounts? Download unauthorized software? And with remote work becoming so common these days, you need clear guidelines for that as well. What are the requirements for secure Wi-Fi networks? How should confidential information be handled remotely?
So covering all those bases, whether people are in the office or working from home, what about specific rules around data handling?
For sure. Outline procedures for handling and sharing sensitive information, encryption requirements, data storage guidelines, who has access to certain types of data, and then make sure you have a clear plan of action for reporting and responding to security incidents. Everyone needs to know what to do, who to contact, how to report potential threats.
So it's about having a clear plan for when things go wrong, not just trying to prevent everything.
Exactly. And don't forget social media usage policies. Gotta prevent data leaks and protect your company's online reputation.
All right, we've talked about training, drills, fostering that security-first mindset, and establishing clear policies. Is there anything else we can do, to really empower employees to be those proactive defenders? Anything that can give them an edge in this constant battle?
That's a great question. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, everyone. It's amazing how much we covered in part 1. We talked about why cybersecurity awareness is so crucial these days, especially for small businesses. And we even started uncovering some of those practical steps you can take to build a more security-conscious culture. But as promised, we're going to go even deeper in this part. We're going to delve into those specific tools and best practices you can use to make a difference. And to really understand why this is so important, we'll be looking at some real-world examples of, what can go wrong.
Yeah, sometimes seeing the impact of a cyber attack firsthand is the best way to really grasp what's at stake. But before we get into those cautionary tales, let's revisit something we touched upon in part 1, the importance of having those clear security policies in place. Those guidelines that spell out things like acceptable use of company devices and networks, protocols for remote work, procedures for handling sensitive information.
Right, those policies. I have to admit, when we talked about creating them, my first thought was, where do I even begin? It just seems so daunting, especially for a small business that doesn't have like a dedicated legal or IT team.
I totally get that feeling. But there's good news. You don't have to start from scratch. Organizations like CISA and NIST, they offer these templates and guidelines that you can adapt to fit your specific business needs. Think of them as a blueprint. You can tailor them to create a framework that really makes sense for your company.
Okay, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's a relief. What are some things we should keep in mind when we're creating these policies?
Make sure they're easy to understand. Use plain language. Avoid all that jargon and keep them concise. You want your employees to actually read the information and absorb it, not feel overwhelmed by this huge document. And don't forget to review and update your policies regularly. The threat landscape is constantly changing, so your policies, they need to evolve too.
Right, keep them current. So we have our policies in place. What's next? What's the next step in beefing up our security?
Well, as we mentioned before, the right tools can really empower your employees to practice good security habits. Let's dive into some examples. Remember those password managers we talked about? They're absolute game changers.
Oh, tell me about it. Between work accounts, personal accounts, social media, I feel like I have a million passwords to keep track of.
Yeah.
And it's so tempting to just use the same, like, easy password for everything, but, I know that's a recipe for disaster.
It's a super common problem, and that's exactly why password managers are so helpful. They securely store all of your passwords, so you really only need to remember one master password to unlock the vault, so to speak. Plus, they can generate strong, unique passwords for each of your accounts, which eliminates that whole temptation to reuse weak passwords.
It's like having a digital bodyguard for your passwords, and it sounds like something that everyone in a company should be using, not just the tech-savvy folks.
Absolutely. And the good news is that there are tons of affordable options out there. Now, what about those pesky phishing emails that we talked about? They're a constant threat, and it really only takes one wrong click to cause some major problems.
I know, it feels like every day there's a new scam trying to, trick you into giving up your information. How do we protect ourselves from those?
Well, email filtering software can really be a lifesaver here. Think of it as like adding an extra layer of protection to your inbox. It analyzes incoming emails, looking for those suspicious characteristics, things like fake sender addresses, malicious attachments, links to known phishing websites.
So it's like having a virtual bouncer at the door screening out the bad guys before they even get in.
Exactly. And it's another tool that's become really affordable, and the peace of mind that it provides, well, it's worth it. But protecting yourself from phishing emails is just one part of the puzzle. What about protecting the devices themselves?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how secure your email is if someone's laptop or phone is compromised.
You're right. That's where endpoint security solutions come in. They include things like antivirus, anti-malware software that runs on all of your devices, laptops, desktops, smartphones, the whole lot.
So each device has its own little security guard, constantly on the lookout for trouble.
Yeah, you got it. These solutions, they constantly scan for and block known threats. They prevent malicious software from installing, and they alert you to any kind of suspicious activity. And they're really essential for any business, whether your employees are working in the office or remotely.
And I bet there are tons of additional features that these solutions offer beyond just, basic protection.
You're exactly right. Many endpoint security solutions, they include things like web filtering, which prevents employees from accidentally visiting malicious websites, data loss prevention, which helps protect sensitive data from being leaked, and even device encryption, which makes it much harder for those hackers to access the data on a lost or stolen device.
Wow, so they're a really comprehensive security package. It's like having an entire security team working behind the scenes to keep your business safe.
It really is. And just like with the other tools we've discussed, there are options available to fit businesses of all sizes and budgets. Now let's talk about something that's become especially critical in today's world of remote work. VPNs. I know they're important for security, but I'm a little fuzzy on how they actually work.
I was just thinking that, to refresh my memory.
So a VPN, a virtual private network, it creates this secure, encrypted connection between your device and the internet. Think of it like building a private tunnel for your data. Even if you're using a public Wi-Fi network, your traffic is protected from prying eyes.
So if I'm working from, say, a coffee shop or an airport, and I'm connected to their Wi-Fi, my data is still safe.
That's right. VPNs make it much harder for cybercriminals to intercept that sensitive information, like passwords, financial data, customer information. They're a must-have for any business with remote workers, especially those who are handling sensitive data.
Got it. So it's like having a secret passageway for your data, keeping it hidden from anyone who might be snooping around.
I love that analogy. And thankfully, a lot of VPN services offer really affordable plans that are specifically designed for small businesses. Okay, one last tool we should talk about. One that's become super important these days. Multi-factor authentication, or MFA.
Right, MFA. I've seen that more and more when I'm logging into like websites and apps. It usually involves getting a code sent to your phone or email.
That's it. It's one of the most effective ways to protect your accounts. MFA requires you to provide 2 or more forms of verification before you can log in. So even if a hacker manages to steal your password, they can't access your account without that second factor. It's like having an extra lock on your door.
So I can definitely see why that would be so effective. What are some, common examples of these verification factors?
It usually involves a combination of something you know, like a password, something you have, like your smartphone, or something you are, like a fingerprint. So, for example, you might enter your password and then the website sends a code to your phone that you also have to enter. Or you might use a fingerprint scanner to verify your identity.
Okay, that makes sense. And the more factors you use, the harder it is for someone to break in.
Exactly. And thankfully, a lot of online services are now offering MFA as an option, so it's becoming easier than ever to implement. And you know what else is great?
Tell me.
A lot of the tools that we've been discussing, like those password managers and endpoint security solutions, they actually integrate with MFA. So they can all work together seamlessly to create this multi-layered security system for your business. It's like having a security guard at every entrance, ensuring that only authorized individuals can get in.
So it sounds like the more of these tools that you use, the stronger your defenses become. But I imagine all of this can get pretty complicated, especially for someone who's not, a tech expert. Is there any help out there for small businesses who are feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this?
For sure. That's where companies like Stonefly really shine. They specialize in helping businesses navigate all those complexities of cybersecurity. They can assess your specific needs, recommend the right tools and solutions for your situation, and even help you implement and manage those solutions.
So they're kind of like your cybersecurity Sherpas,
Yeah,
guiding you through those treacherous mountains of, security threats.
I love that analogy. They really can take a lot of the desk work and the stress out of it. Their website, www.stonefly.com, is a fantastic resource for learning more. They have tons of information about their offerings and what they can do for businesses of all sizes. And if you want to speak with an expert directly, their sales team is always happy to help. You can reach them at sales@stonefly.com.
Okay, so Stonefly is a great resource for anyone feeling a little lost in the cybersecurity woods. But even with the best tools and expert help, I still think it comes down to having a workforce that's, security aware. So how do we keep reminding them about those best practices and make sure that cybersecurity is always top of mind?
That's a great point. And that's where ongoing cybersecurity awareness training is absolutely vital. It's not a one-time thing. The threat landscape is constantly changing, so your training has to keep pace.
It's like learning a new language. You can't just
Yeah.
study it once and expect to be fluent forever. You need to keep practicing learning new vocabulary.
Exactly. Regular training helps your employees stay up to date on the latest threats, refresh their knowledge of those best practices, and just reinforce the importance of following company policies. It helps keep cybersecurity, front and center in their minds.
And I know some people might think that cybersecurity training is, kind of boring or just a bunch of technical jargon, but it doesn't have to be that way, right?
Not at all. There are all sorts of creative ways to make the training engaging and even fun. You can use interactive modules, real-life simulations, even gamification. The key is to make it relevant to their everyday work lives and provide practical tips they can use right away.
I like that. Make it fun, make it engaging. But even with the best training, sometimes things still happen. People make mistakes or sophisticated attacks. They slip through the cracks. So what happens if, despite all of our best efforts, we still experience a cyber attack?
That's a great question, and that's exactly where we'll pick up in part 3 of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. In those first 2 parts, we really dug into the importance of cybersecurity awareness, especially for small businesses. We've explored practical strategies for building a security-conscious workplace, talked about some tools, some techniques you can use to strengthen those defenses. But, let's face it, even with the best preventative measures in place, there's always a chance that something could slip through the cracks.
Yeah. That's right. And that's why it's so important to be prepared for that worst case scenario. That's where having a solid incident response plan really comes into play.
Okay, so it's like having an emergency plan in place, just in case a cyber attack does happen.
You got it. It's about knowing what to do if your systems are compromised, how to minimize that damage, and how to recover quickly, efficiently as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. But where do we even begin with something like that? What are the key elements of a good incident response plan?
Well, the first step is to establish a very clear chain of command. You need to know who's in charge, who makes the decisions, who's responsible for what.
So we're talking about like identifying key personnel who'll be involved in that incident response process.
Exactly. And you need to clearly define their roles and responsibilities. And this should include people from various departments, not just IT.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity incidents can impact different areas of a business. So you need representation from, legal, communications, operations, customer service, you name it.
Okay, so it's a true team effort. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Exactly. And once you have your team in place, the next step is to develop very clear procedures for identifying, containing, and eradicating threats. Think of it as like a step-by-step guide for what to do in those different scenarios.
So like a playbook for handling those various types of cyber attacks.
That's a great analogy. Your plan should outline exactly how to detect, verify an incident, how to isolate affected systems, how to remove the threat, and then how to restore your data and systems back to normal.
It sounds like having this plan documented and easily accessible to everyone on that incident response team would be super crucial.
Absolutely. And just as important as having that documented is regularly testing your plan. Think of it like a fire drill for cyber attacks. Regular testing ensures that your plan actually works, that everyone knows their roles, and that you can respond quickly, efficiently in a real crisis.
Okay, so we have our team, we have our procedures, and we're regularly testing our plan. What else should we be thinking about when it comes to incident response?
Communication. During a cybersecurity incident, clear and timely communication is essential. Your plan needs to outline how you'll communicate with internal stakeholders like your employees, management, as well as external stakeholders, like customers, partners, even law enforcement if necessary.
It sounds like having pre-drafted templates for different types of communications would be super helpful, especially in a high-pressure situation where you need to respond quickly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Being prepared and organized is half the battle. But even with the best plan, the best communication strategy, a cyber attack can still disrupt your business operations. So how do we ensure business continuity, recover from an incident as smoothly as possible?
That's a great question. What steps can we take to minimize that downtime and get back on our feet quickly?
That's where data backup and disaster recovery come in. If you have backups of your critical data and systems, you can actually restore them even if your original systems are compromised. It's like, having an insurance policy for your data.
So even if the worst happens, we can still access our data and get back to work relatively quickly.
Exactly. It's about minimizing that disruption to your business operations and ensuring that you can continue to serve your customers. And this is actually an area where companies like Stonefly can be incredibly valuable. They offer a range of solutions to help businesses back up their data, replicate their systems, and then recover very quickly in the event of an incident.
Stonefly again. They really do seem to have all the bases covered when it comes to cybersecurity.
They really do, and their expertise can be super helpful, especially for their businesses that, might not have the internal resources to manage all of this on their own. You can learn more about their backup and disaster recovery solutions on their website, www.stonefly.com, or reach out to their sales team at sales@stonefly.com for a personalized consultation.
Okay, so Stonefly is a great resource for data backup and disaster recovery. Are there any other strategies that businesses can use to become more resilient, in the face of these cyber attacks?
Definitely. Implementing something called system redundancy is a great way to minimize downtime. This basically means having backup systems in place that can take over if your primary systems fail. It's like having a spare tire in your car. If you get a flat, you can quickly swap it out, keep driving.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So if one system goes down, we have a backup that's ready to go. That makes sense. What else?
Security monitoring is another really crucial piece of this puzzle. It's about constantly watching for any kind of suspicious activity on your systems, like unauthorized access attempts, malware infections, data being stolen. Think of it like having security cameras and motion detectors, but for your computer network.
So they're constantly on the lookout for any signs of trouble.
Exactly. And thankfully, there are tools and services out there that can kind of automate this process for you. They can monitor your systems 24/7, analyze logs, look for suspicious patterns, and even alert you, in real time if they detect something fishy. Early detection is key to minimizing that damage from a cyber attack.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in this episode. Any final thoughts for our listeners before we wrap up our deep dive into cybersecurity awareness?
Yeah, I would just emphasize that cybersecurity is an ongoing journey, not a destination. It's a constant process of learning, adapting, and improving. And it's a journey that every business, no matter how small, really needs to embark on.
Because in today's digital world, cybersecurity is no longer, optional. It's essential. And it's not just about protecting your business, it's about protecting your data, your reputation, your peace of mind.
Well said. And remember, you don't have to go it alone. There are resources, partners out there who can help you navigate this complex landscape. Start by assessing your risks, implementing those foundational security measures we talked about, developing that solid incident response plan. And if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to experts like those at Stonefly. They can provide valuable guidance and support every step of the way.
And remember, folks, knowledge is power. The more you understand about cybersecurity, the better equipped you'll be to protect your business. So stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.